Russia is a declining power. It is a third world power that lives on the export of natural resources. It does not control the price of those natural resources. This is a country in trouble. We are all in trouble. That's theirs. Russia also has a borderland that it must have. Like the United States, it has imperatives. It needs, above all else, strategic depth. In the West, the strategic depth was provided by the Baltic states, Belarus, and Ukraine. The second entry point is the Caucasus. There, it used to be Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia. Now it is Dagestan, Chechnya, Ossetia. But so long as they hold the high Caucasus, they're okay. Over the past years, the Baltics have been included in NATO. And St. Petersburg is now 100 miles from NATO, where previously it was 1,000. Then the Ukrainian event became. From the Russian point of view, the Ukrainian event was an American coup d'etat. They think in these terms. Coup d'etat or not, a pro-Western, pro-Russian government was replaced by pro-Western government. And the Russians said the United States had no reason to do this in Ukraine if it did not intend to threaten the viability of the Russian Federation, because it was a flat rush to Moscow. It came close to war. Russia said, we can't live with this line, with you here. And the Americans said, and we can't live with you on the Carpathians. We can't. If you press the Carpathians and you're pressing the north, we don't have the forces, we don't want to have the forces to balance you. And a deal was made. Never published, never signed. We accepted that Ukraine was a frozen war. American forces did not move out of Romania. We did not let the Romanians go to Moldova. We did not let the Poles go to Lvov. And no, you guys can't go to Carpathians. We don't want that because that will force the Russians to act. And so we had a buffer. Now, all buffers built this way are inherently unstable. They're unstable because they depend on the power inside the buffer to remain stable and coherent and accept its position, which is we didn't have a signed treaty because then we would have to decide what to do with Crimea. And we really don't care what happens to Crimea, but we didn't want to say that. So, left there. We would have to discuss the little green men in the east. And frankly, if you want to send little green men into the east, we can live with that. We can't live with main Russian force, armored divisions, on the border to Romania, but we can live with the rest. But there is two major threats on the buffer zone. And the biggest one is Belarus. Look at the map. Belarus has as its border city Smolensk. To the west, it opens a front in Poland. Lukashenko has kept it steady. But as I said in a conversation with a senior official, any time I have to depend on the defense of my country, on the life of one man, in his 60s, this is not the foundation of stability. The Russians cannot forget the borderland. We cannot return to the Cold War. So the question is, and this becomes a dangerous thing, if either of these countries destabilize and we think the Russians are coming in, do we go first? If they think we're coming in, do they come first? This is the worst of all military gambles. It's a non-nuclear nuclear game. You must strike first. Now, this is a serious matter for which the United States has committed our children, if I want to be sentimental, and they are in Poland, they're in Romania where it's snowing. My son's in the Air Force and the Air Force is building bases. All right, we've made the commitment. Where are our allies? What is NATO's position on this? What is Germany's position? They wrote a very strong statement condemning the Russians. Certainly the Russians will retreat in fear. Is there a NATO? What is its policy on the Eastern Front in the event of destabilization? Knowing that by the time it destabilizes, it's too late to do anything. So this is the divergence of the United States and of NATO. We've done something. We didn't ask NATO's permission. We have the permission of Poland. We have the permission of Romania. I would welcome the permission of Hungary one day, and perhaps we'll get it. Each country plays its own game. Each country lives with the consequences of the game it plays. For us, the consequence is the possibility of a conflict that we don't want. But given my description of American strategy, you know why we're in Poland and Romania. We do not know what Germany's national strategy is. We do not know what Italy's national strategy is. We have no idea what the French are doing. Now, we once did. When NATO was the bulwark against the Soviet Union, we knew what the national strategy at all sides was. Now, it is no longer clear. Who is with us, who is not with us? Who is working with the Russians, who's not working with the Russians? We can all have a coherent policy. We can all say, look, we need to reach out to the Russians and help stabilize them to give them confidence. But what we're doing is moving against each other. Germany wants to give them confidence, and we're flying very large aircraft in the Black Sea. These are the conversations that NATO doesn't want to have. Because if they have it, they have to have a resolution on the table. And if they have a resolution on the table, they have to say yes or no. And the NATO position on anything is ambiguous. So when we talk about very concrete military problems with NATO, two things will happen. First, you Americans are cowboys. Okay, fair enough, I like being a cowboy. The second is that you do not understand the complexity of the situation. During the Cold War, we understood the complexity and we had to simplify it by placing forces in a blocking position. The situation is complex. The situation is always complex. You can use that complexity to paralyze yourself, or you can say, let me simplify this. This is a grenade launcher. It goes 400 feet. It's simple. I don't mean to be light on war. We have fought wars now for 17, 18 years, and all of our children in my country have been somehow exposed. What I am saying is that we need some clarity between us, but we do not even have a common understanding of the threat. We do not even understand what we are obligated to commit. So at the same time that we would love to have some European help in the Pacific, or in the Indian Ocean, or in the Middle East, but don't even expect it. We would at least like to have some European help in Europe, and even that is not forthcoming. The point that I want to make is there are two perceptions of NATO. One is the American, one is the European. The European perception is that NATO exists for European security. They state this without telling us what the threat to European security is, so we can't prepare for it. And therefore, they don't have to allocate forces to deal with it. Security has become a metaphysical concept. You need to read Kant, the prolegomena to any future metaphysic, to understand what the Europeans mean by security. We don't understand it. We do understand that we have a military, and if anything happens, we go. The American view is that NATO has become a trap. You will not find this in Washington, and you will not find this in Boston. You will find this outside of there, in the rest of in America. And what you will find is a feeling that what NATO will do if you go through NATO is slow you down at the moment you cannot afford to be slowed down. And this is not because we are gunslingers, we're looking for wars. It is that if the Russian situation deteriorates, we will not have time for discussions. There is no plan. There is no coherent plan. There is no coherent understanding of what the danger is. There is no alliance except for the